Jacob heard that Shechem had raped his daughter Dinah, but his sons were out in the fields with the livestock, so he didn't say anything until they got home. Hamor, Shechem's father, went to Jacob to work out marriage arrangements. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons, on the way back from the fields, heard what had happened. They were outraged, explosive with anger. Shechem's rape of Jacob's daughter was intolerable in Israel and not to be put up with. Hamor spoke with Jacob and his sons. My son Shechem is head over heels in love with your daughter. Give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us, and we'll give our daughters to you. Live together with us as one family. Settle down among us and make yourselves at home. Prosper among us. Shechem then spoke for himself, addressing Dinah's father and brothers. Please say yes, I'll pay anything. Set the bridal price as high as you will. The sky's the limit. Only give me this girl for my wife. Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father with cunning. Their sister, after all, had been raped. They said, this is impossible. We can never give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised. Why? We'd be disgraced. The only condition on which we can talk business is if all your men become circumcised like us. Then we will freely exchange daughters in marriage and make ourselves at home among you and become one big happy family. But if this is not an acceptable condition, we will take our sister and leave. That seemed fair enough to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man was so smitten with Jacob's daughter that he proceeded to do what had been asked. He was also the most admired son in his father's family. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the public square and spoke to the town council. These men like us. They are our friends. Let them settle down here and make themselves at home. There's plenty of room in the country for them. And just think, we can even exchange our daughters in marriage. But these men will only accept our invitation to live with us and become one big family on one condition, that all our males become circumcised just as they themselves are. This is a very good deal for us. These people are very wealthy with great herds of livestock, and we're going to get our hands on it. So let's do what they ask and have them settle down with us. Everyone who was anyone in the city agreed with Hamor and his son, Shechem. Every male was circumcised. 3 days after the circumcision, while all the men were still very sore, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each with a sword in hand, walked into the city as if they owned the place and murdered every man there. They also killed Hamor and his son Shechem, rescued Dinah from Shechem's house, and left. When the rest of Jacob's sons came on the scene of slaughter, they looted the entire city in retaliation for Dinah's rape. Flocks, herds, donkeys, belongings, everything, whether in the city or the fields, they took. And then they took all the wives and children captive and ransacked their homes for anything valuable. Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you've made my name repulsive to the people here, these Canaanites and Perizzites. If they decided to gang up on us and attack us, as few as we are, we wouldn't stand a chance. They'd wipe me and my people right off the map. They said, nobody's going to treat our sister like a whore and get by with it. Wonder how come Jacob didn't take up for his daughter. Mercy, Lord. Genesis 35. God spoke to Jacob. Go back to Bethel. Stay there and build an altar to the God who revealed himself to you when you were running for your life from your brother Esau. Jacob told his family and all those who lived with him, throw out all the alien gods which you have, take a good bath and put on clean clothes. We're going to Bethel. I'm going to build an altar there to the God who answered me when I was in trouble and has stuck with me everywhere I've gone since. They turned over to Jacob all the alien gods they'd been holding on to, along with their Lucky Charm earrings. Jacob buried them under the oak tree in Shechem. Then they set out. A paralyzed and fear descended on all the surrounding villages so that they were unable to pursue the sons of Jacob. Jacob and his company arrived at Luz, that is Bethel in the land of Canaan. He built an altar there and named it El Bethel, God of Bethel, because that's where God revealed himself to him when he was running from his brother. And that's when Rebekah's nurse Deborah died. She was buried just below Bethel under the oak tree. It was named Alon Bakuth, which means weeping oak. God revealed himself once again to Jacob after he came back from Padanaram and blessed him. Your name is Jacob, which means healed, but that's your name no longer. For now, your name is Israel, which means God wrestler. God continued, I'm the strong God. Have children, flourish. A nation, a whole company of nations will come from you. Kings will come from your loins. The land I gave Abraham and Isaac, I now give to you and pass it on to your descendants. And then God was gone, ascended from the place where he had spoken with him. Jacob set up a stone pillar on the spot where God had spoken with him. He poured a drink offering on it and anointed it with oil. Jacob dedicated the place where God had spoken with him, Bethel, which means God's house. Then they left Bethel. They were still quite a ways from Ephrath when Rachel went into labor, hard labor. When her labor pains were at their worst, the midwife said to her, don't be afraid, you have another boy. With her last breath, for she was dying, she named him Ben-Oni, which means son of my pain. But his father named him Ben-Jamin, which means son of good fortune. Rachel died and was buried on the road to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Jacob set up a pillar to mark her grave. It's still there today, Rachel's gravestone. Israel kept on his way and set up to Migdal Edor while Israel was living in that region. Reuben went and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard of what he did. There were 12 sons of Jacob, the sons of Leah: Reuben, Jacob's firstborn; Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun. The sons by Rachel: Joseph, Benjamin. The sons by Bilhah, Rachel's maid: Dan, Naphtali. The sons by Zilpah, Leah's maid: Gad, Asher. These were Jacob's sons born to him in Padanaram. Finally, Jacob made it back home to his father Isaac at Mamre and Kiriath Arba, present-day Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had lived. Isaac was now 180 years old. Isaac breathed his last and died, a man full of years. He was buried with his family by his sons Esau and Jacob. Genesis 36. This is the family tree of Esau, who is also called Edom. Esau married women of Canaan: Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite; Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah and the granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite; and Basemath, daughter of Ishmael and sister of Nebaioth. Adah gave Esau Eliphaz. Basemath had Ruel. Oholibamah had Jeush, Jalom, and Korah. These are the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. Esau gathered up his wives, sons, and daughters, and everybody in his household, along with all his livestock, all the animals and possessions he had gotten in Canaan, and moved a considerable distance away from his brother Jacob. The brothers had too many possessions to live together in the same place. The land couldn't support their combined herds of livestock, so Esau ended up settling in the hill country of Seir. Esau and Edom are the same. So this is the family tree of Esau, ancestor of the people of Edom in the hill country of Seir. The name of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, son of Esau's wife Adah; Reuel, son of Esau's wife Basemath. The sons of Eliphaz: Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kedem, and Kenaz. Eliphaz also had a concubine, Timnah, who had Amalek. These are the grandsons of Esau's wife Adah. And these are the sons of Reuel: Nahath, Zerah, Shema, and Mizah, grandsons of Esau's wife Basemath. These are the sons of Esau's wife Oholibamah, daughter of Anath, the son of Zibeon. She gave Esau his sons Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. These are the chieftains in Esau's family tree. From the sons of Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn, came the chieftains: Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek. The chieftains of Eliphaz in the land of Edom, all of them sons of Adah. From the sons of Esau's son Reuel came the chieftains Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These are the chieftains of Reuel in the land of Edom. All these were the sons of Esau's wife Basemath. These are the sons of Esau's wife Oholibamah. The chieftains Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. Chieftains born of Esau's wife Oholibamah, daughter of Anah. These are the sons of Esau, that is Edom, and these are their chieftains. This is the family tree of Seir the Horite, who were native to that land: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishon. Two Dishons. Okay, Dishon and Dishan. These are the chieftains of the Horites, the sons of Seir in the land of Edom. The sons of Lotan were Hori and Homam. Lotan's sister was Timnah. The sons of Shobal were Alvan, Manahabath, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. The sons of Zibeon were Hiah and Anah, and this is the same Anah who found the hot springs in the wilderness while herding his father Zibeon's donkeys. The children of Anah were Dishon and his daughter Oholibamah. The sons of Dishon were Hemdam, Ishban, Ithran, and Kiran. The sons of Ezer, Bilhan, Zavan, and Achan. The sons of Dishon, Uz, and Aaron. These were the Horite chieftains: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishon, the Horite chieftains clan by clan in the land of Seir. And these are the kings who ruled in Edom before there was a king in Israel. Bela, son of Beor, was the king of Edom. The name of his city was Dinhabah. When Bala died, Joab, son of Zerah, from Bozrah, became the next king. When Joab died, he was followed by Hushan from the land of the Temanites. When Hushan died, he was followed by Hadad, son of Bedad. He was the king who defeated the Midianites in Moab. The name of his city was Ivith. And when Hadad died, Samlah of Masrekah became the next king. When Samlah died, Shaul from Rehoboth on the river became king. When Shaul died, he was followed by Al-Hanan, son of Akbar. When Baal-Anan, son of Akbar, died, Hadad became king. The name of his city was Pa'u. His wife's name was Ahitobel, daughter of Matreb, daughter of Mezahab. And these are the chieftains from the line of Esau, clan by clan, region by region: Timnah, Alva, Japheth, Oholibamah, Elah, Pinan, Kenaz, Teman, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Eram, the chieftains of Edom as they occupied their various regions. This accounts for the family tree of Esau, ancestor of all the Edomites. Genesis 37. Meanwhile, Jacob had settled down where his father had lived, the land of Canaan, Joseph and his brothers. This is the story of Jacob. The story continues with Joseph, 17 years old at the time, helping out his brothers and herding the flocks. These were his half-brothers, actually, the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Joseph brought his father bad reports on them. Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was a child of his old age. And he made him an elaborately embroidered coat. When his brothers realized that their father loved him more than them, they grew to hate him. They wouldn't even speak to him. Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said, "Listen to this dream I had. We were all out in the field gathering bundles of wheat. All of a sudden, my bundle stood up straight, and your bundle circled around it and bowed down to mine." His brothers said, "So you're going to rule us? You're going to boss us around?" And they hated him the more because of his dreams and the way he talked. He had another dream and told this to one of his brothers. "I dreamed another dream. The sun and moon and 11 stars bowed down to me." When he told it to his father and brothers, his father reprimanded him. "What's all of this dreaming? Am I and your mother and your brothers all supposed to bow down to you?" Now his brothers were really jealous, but his father brooded over the whole business. His brothers had gone off to Shechem, where they were pasturing their father's flocks. Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers are with flocks in Shechem. Come, I want to send you to them." Joseph said, "I'm ready." He said, "Go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing and bring me back a report." He sent off from the valley of Hebron to Shechem. A man met him as he was wandering through the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" "I'm trying to find my brothers. Do you have any idea where they're grazing their flocks?" The man said, "They've left here, but I overheard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph took off, tracked his brothers down, and found them in Dothan. They spotted him off in the distance. By the time he got to them, they had cooked up a plot to kill him. The brothers were saying, "Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him and throw him into one of these old cisterns. We can say that the vicious animal ate him up. We'll see what his dreams amount to." Reuben heard the brothers talking and intervened to save him. "We're not going to kill him. No murder. Go ahead and throw him in the cistern out here in the wild, but don't hurt him." Reuben planned to go back later and get him out and take him to his father. When Joseph reached his brothers, they ripped off the fancy coat he was wearing, grabbed him, and threw him into a cistern. The cistern was dry. There wasn't even any water in it. When they sat down to eat their supper, looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites on their way from Gilead. Their camels loaded with spices, ointments, perfumes to sell in Egypt. Judah said, "Brothers, what are we going to do? What are we going to get out of killing our brother and concealing the evidence? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, but let's not kill him. He is, after all, our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. By that time, the Midianite traders were passing by. His brothers pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph with them down to Egypt. But later Reuben came back and went to the cistern. No Joseph. He ripped his clothes in despair. Beside himself, he went to his brothers. "The boy's gone. What am I going to do?" They took Joseph's coat, butchered a goat, and dipped the coat in the blood. They took the fancy coat back to their father and said, "We found this. Look it over. Do you think this is your son's coat?" He recognized it at once. "My son's coat. A wild animal has eaten him." Joseph torn from limb from limb. Jacob tore his clothes in grief, dressed in rough burlap, and mourned his son a long, long time. His sons and daughters tried to comfort him. "You old deceivers, you old lying wonder heathens." They tried to comfort him, but he refused their comfort. "I'll go to the grave mourning my son." Oh, how his father wept for him. In Egypt, the Midianites sold Joseph to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, manager of his household affairs. Genesis chapter 38. About that time, Judah separated from his brothers and went to stay with a man in Adullam named Hira. While there, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite named Shua. He married her. They went to bed. She became pregnant and had a son named She got pregnant again and had a son named Onan. She still had another son, and she named this one Shelah. They were living at Kezib when she had him. Judah got a wife for his firstborn. He named her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn grievously offended God, and God took his life. So Judah told Onan, "Go and sleep with your brother's widow. It's the duty of a brother-in-law to keep your brother's line alive." But Onan knew that the child wouldn't be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's widow, he spilled the semen on the ground so he wouldn't produce a child for his brother. God was much offended by what he did and also took his life. So Judah stepped in and told his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow at home with your father until my son Shelah grows up." He was worried that Shelah would also end up dead, just like his brother. So Tamar went to live with her father. Time passed. Judah's wife, Shua's daughter, died. Time passed. Judah's wife, Shua's daughter, died. When the time of mourning was over, Judah, with his friend Hira of Adullam, went to Timnah for the sheep shearing. Tamar was old. "Your father-in-law has gone to Timnah to shear his sheep." She took off her widow's clothes, put on a veil to disguise herself, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. She realized by now that even though Shelah was grown up, she wasn't going to be married to him. Judah saw her and assumed she was a prostitute since she had veiled her face. He left the road and went over to her. He said, "Let me sleep with you." He had no idea that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you pay me?" "I'll send you," he said, a kid goat from the flock." She said, "Not unless you give me a pledge until you send it." So what would you want in the way of a pledge?" She said, "Your personal seal and cord and the staff you carry." He handed them over to her and slept with her, and she got pregnant. She then left and went home. She removed her veil and put her widow's clothes back on. Judah sent the kid goat by his friend from Adullam to recover the pledge from the woman, but he couldn't find her. He asked the men of that place, "Where's the prostitute that used to sit by the road here near Anam?" They said, "There's never been a prostitute here." He went back to Judah and said, "I couldn't find her." The men there said, "There's never been a prostitute there." Judah said, "Let her have it then. If we keep looking, everyone will be poking fun at us. I kept my part of the bargain. I sent my kid goat, but you couldn't find her." 3 months or so later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law has been playing the whore, and now she's a pregnant whore." Ooh, goodness. Judah yelled, "Get out of here. Burn her up. Get her out of here. Burn her up." You old heathen. As they brought her out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. "I'm pregnant by the man who owns these things. Identify them, please. Who's the owner of this seal and cord and the staff?" Judah saw that they were his. He said, "She's in the right. I'm in the wrong." Yeah, I bet she was. "I wouldn't let her marry my son Shelah." He never slept with her again. When her time came to give birth, it turned out that there were twins in her womb. As she was giving birth, one put his hand out. The midwife tied a red thread on his head, saying, This one came first. But then he pulled it back, and his brother came out. She said, "Oh, a breakout." So she named him Perez, which means breakout. Then his brother came out with the red thread on his hand. They named him Zerah, which means bright. Genesis chapter 39. After Joseph had been taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelites, Potiphar, an Egyptian, one of Pharaoh's officials and the manager of his household, brought him from them. As it turned out, God was with Joseph and things went very well with him. He ended up living in the home of his Egyptian master. His master recognized that God was with him, saw that God was working for good in everything he did. He became very fond of Joseph and made him his personal aide. He put him in charge of all his personal affairs, turning everything over to him. From that moment on, God blessed the home of the Egyptian, all because of Joseph. The blessing of God spread over everything he owned at home and in the fields, and all Potiphar had to concern himself with was eating 3 meals a day. Joseph was a strikingly handsome man. As time went on, his master's wife became infatuated with Joseph and one day said, "Sleep with me." He wouldn't do it. He said to his master's wife, "Look with me here. My master doesn't give a second thought to anything that goes on here. He puts me in charge of everything he owns. He treats me as an equal. The only thing he hasn't turned over to me is you. You're his wife, after all. How could I violate his trust and sin against God?" She pestered him day after day after day, but he stood his ground. He refused to go to bed with her. On one of these days, he came to the house to do his work, and none of the household servants happened to be there. She grabbed him by his cloak, saying, "Sleep with me." He left his coat in her hand and ran out of the house. When she realized that he had left his coat in her hand and run outside, she called to her house servants, "Look, this Hebrew shows up, and before you know it, he's trying to seduce us. He tried to make love to me, but I yelled out as loud as I could. With all my yelling and screaming, he left his coat beside me here and ran outside." She kept his coat right there until his master came home. She told him the same story. She said, "The Hebrew slave, the one you brought to us, came after me and tried to use me for his plaything. Ooh, you devil. When I yelled and screamed, he left his coat with me and ran outside. You a lying wonder." When his master heard his wife's story, telling him, "These are the things your slave did to me," he was furious. Joseph's master took him and threw him into the jail where the king's prisoners were locked up. But there in jail, God was with Joseph. He reached out in kindness to him. He put him on good terms with the head jailer. The head jailer put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners. He ended up managing the whole operation. The head jailer gave Joseph free rein, never even checked on him because God was with him. Whatever he did, God made sure that it worked out for the best. Genesis chapter 40. As time went on, it happened that the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt crossed their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was furious with his two officials, the head cupbearer and head baker, and put them in custody under the captain of the guard. It was the same jail where Joseph was held. The captain of the guard assigned Joseph to see to their needs. After they had been in custody for a while, the king's cupbearer and baker, while being held in jail, both had a dream on the same night, each dream having its own meaning. When Joseph arrived in the morning, he noticed that they were feeling low. So he asked them, the two officials of Pharaoh who had been thrown into jail with him, What's wrong? Why the long faces? They said, we dream dreams and there's no one to interpret them. Joseph said, don't interpretations come from God? Tell me the dreams. First, the head cupbearer told his dream to Joseph. In my dream, there was a vine in front of me with 3 branches on it that budded, blossomed, and the clusters ripened into grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's cup. I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and gave the cup to Pharaoh. Joseph said, here's the meaning. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will get you out of here. Pharaoh will get you out of here and put you back to your old work. You'll be giving Pharaoh his cup just as you used to when you were his cupbearer. Only remember me when things are going well with you again. Tell Pharaoh about me and get me out of this place. I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews. And since I've been here, I've done nothing to deserve being put in this hole. When the head baker saw how well Joseph's interpretation turned out, he spoke up. My dream went like this. I saw 3 wicker baskets on my head. The top basket had assorted pastries from the bakery, and birds were picking at them from the basket on my head. Joseph said, this is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will take off your head, impale you on a post, and the birds will pick your bones clean. And sure enough, on the 3rd day, it was Pharaoh's birthday, and he threw a feast for all his servants. He set the head cupbearer and the head baker in places of honor in the presence of all the guests. Then he restored the head cupbearer to his cupbearing post. He handed Pharaoh his cup just as before, and then he impaled the head baker on a post, following Joseph's interpretations exactly. But the head cupbearer never gave Joseph another thought. He forgot all about him. Now, what could a baker do that would make you want to kill him? Now, if that's not the craziest thing, you're going to kill the baker. Genesis 41. 2 years passed and Pharaoh had a dream. 2 years passed. Wow. He was standing by the Nile River. 7 cows came up out of the Nile, all shimmering with health, and grazed on the marsh grass. Then 7 other cows, all skin and bones, came up out of the river after them and stood by them on the bank of the Nile. The skinny cows ate the 7 healthy cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He went back to sleep and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain, full-bodied and lush, grew out of a single stalk. Then 7 more ears grew up, but these were thin and dried out by the east wind. The thin ears swallowed up the full, healthy ears. Then Pharaoh woke up. Another dream. When morning came, he was upset. He sent for all the magicians and sages of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but they couldn't interpret them to him. The head cupbearer then spoke up and said to Pharaoh, I just now remembered something. I'm sorry. I should have told you this long ago. Once when Pharaoh got angry with his servants, he locked me and the head baker in the house of the captain of the guard. We both had dreams on the same night, each dream with its own meaning. It so happened that there was a young Hebrew slave there with us. He belonged to the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, each dream separately. Things turned out just as he interpreted. I was returned to my position, and the head baker was impaled. Pharaoh at once sent for Joseph. They brought him on the run from the jail cell. He cut his hair, put on clean clothes, and came to the Pharaoh. I dreamed a dream, Pharaoh told Joseph. Nobody can interpret it. But I've heard that just by hearing a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered, not I, but God. God will set Pharaoh's mind at ease. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile. 7 cows, shimmering with health, came up out of the river and grazed on the marsh grass. On their heels, 7 more cows, all skin and bones, came up. I've never seen uglier cows anywhere in Egypt. Then the 7 skinny, ugly cows ate up the first 7 healthy cows. But you can tell by looking after them after they were just as skinny and ugly as before. Then I woke up. In my second dream, I saw 7 ears of grain, full-bodied and lush, growing out of a single stalk, and right behind them, 7 other ears, shriveled thin and dried out by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the full ears. I've told all this to the magicians, but they can't figure it out. Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's 2 dreams both mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh what he's going to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears of grain are 7 years. They're the same dream. The 7 sick and ugly cows that followed them up are 7 years, and the 7 scrawny ears of grain dried up by the east wind are the same, 7 years of famine. The meaning is what I said earlier. God is letting Pharaoh in on what he is going to do. 7 years of plenty are on their way throughout Egypt, but on their heels will come 7 years of famine, leaving no trace of the Egyptian plenty. As the country is emptied by famine, there won't be even a scrap left of the previous plenty. The famine will be total. The fact that Pharaoh dreamed the same dream twice emphasizes God's determination to do this and do it soon. So Pharaoh needs to look for a wise and experienced man and put him in charge of the country. Then Pharaoh needs to appoint managers throughout the country of Egypt to organize it during the years of plenty. Their job will be to collect all the food produced in the good years ahead and stockpile the grain under Pharaoh's authority, storing it in the towns for food. This grain will be held back to be used later during the 7 years of famine that are coming on Egypt. This way the country won't be devastated by famine. This seemed like a good idea to Pharaoh and his officials. Then Pharaoh said to his officials, isn't this the man we need? Are we going to find anyone else who has God's spirit in him like this? So Pharaoh said to Joseph, excuse me, you're the man for us. God has given you the inside story. No one is as qualified as you in experience and wisdom. From now on, you're in charge of my affairs. All of my people will report to you. Only as king will I be over you. So Pharaoh commissioned Joseph. I'm putting you in charge of the entire country of Egypt. Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his finger and slipped it on Joseph's hand. He outfitted him in the robes of best linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He put the second in command chariot at his disposal, and as he rode, people shouted, "Bravo!" Joseph was in charge of the entire country of Egypt. Pharaoh told Joseph, I'm Pharaoh, but no one in Egypt will make a single move without your stamp of approval. Then Pharaoh gave Joseph an Egyptian wife named Zaphina-Paneah, which means God speaks and he lives. He also gave him an Egyptian wife, Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On, which is Heliopolis. And Joseph took up his duties over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he went to work for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. As soon as Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, he began his work in Egypt. During the next 7 years of plenty, the land produced bumper crops. Joseph gathered up the food of the 7 good years in Egypt and stored the food in cities. In each city, he stockpiled surplus from the surrounding fields. Joseph collected so much grain it was like the sand of the ocean that he finally quit keeping track. Joseph had 2 sons born to him before the years of famine came. Asenath, daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On, was their mother. Joseph named firstborn Manasseh, which means forget, saying, God made me forget all my hardship and my parental home. He named his second son Ephraim, which means double prosperity, saying, God has prospered me in the land of my sorrow. Then Egypt's 7 good years came to an end, and the 7 years of famine arrived, just as Joseph had said. All countries experienced famine. Egypt was the only country that had bread. When the famine spread throughout Egypt, the people called out in distress to Pharaoh, calling for bread. He told the Egyptians, go to Joseph, do what he tells you. As the famine got worse all over the country, Joseph opened the storehouses and sold emergency supplies to the Egyptians. The famine was very bad. Soon the whole world was coming to buy supplies from Joseph. The famine was bad all over. Genesis 42. When Jacob learned that there was food in Egypt, he said to his sons, why do you sit around here and look at one another? I've heard that there's food in Egypt. Go down there and buy some so that we can survive and not starve to death. 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to Egypt to get food. Jacob didn't send Joseph's brother Benjamin with him. He was afraid that something bad might happen to him. So Israel's sons joined everyone else that was going to Egypt to buy food, for Canaan too was hit hard by the famine. Joseph was running the country. He was the one who gave out rations to all the people. When Joseph's brothers arrived, they treated him with honor, bowing to him. Joseph recognized them immediately, but treated them as strangers and spoke roughly to him. He said, where do you come from? From Canaan, they said, we've come to buy food. Joseph knew who they were, but they didn't know who he was. Joseph, remembering the dreams he had dreamed of them, said, you're spies. You've come to look for our weak spots. No, master, they said, we've only come to buy food. We're the sons of the same man. We're honest men. We never think of spying. He said, no, you're spies. You've come to look for our weak spots. They said, there were 12 of us brothers, sons of the same father in the country of Canaan. The youngest is with our father, and one is no more. But Joseph said, it's just as I said, you're spies. This is how I'll test you. As Pharaoh lives, you're not going to leave this place until your younger brother comes here. Send one of you to get your brother while the rest of you stay here in jail. We'll see if you're telling the truth or not. As Pharaoh lives, I'll say you're spies. Then he threw them into jail for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph spoke to them, do this and you'll live. I'm a God-fearing man. If you're as honest as you say you are, one of your brothers will stay here in jail while the rest of you take the food back to your hungry families. But you have to bring your youngest brother back to me, confirming the truth of your speech, and not one of you will die. They agreed. Then they started talking among themselves. Now we're paying for what we did to our brother. We saw how terrified he was when he was begging for mercy. We wouldn't listen to him, and now we're the ones in trouble. Reuben broke in. Didn't I tell you don't hurt the boy? But no, you wouldn't listen, and now we're paying for his murder. Joseph had been using an interpreter, and so they didn't know Joseph was understanding every word. Joseph turned away from them and cried. When he was able to speak again, he took Simeon and had him tied up, making a prisoner of him while they all watched. Then Joseph ordered that their sacks be filled with grain, that the money be put back in each sack, and that they be given rations for the road. That was all done for them. They loaded their food supplies on their donkeys and set off. When they stopped for the night, one of them opened his sack to get food for his donkey. There at the mouth of his bag was his money. He called out to his brothers, my money has been returned. It's right here in my bag. They were puzzled and frightened. What's God doing to us? When they got back to their father Jacob, back in the land of Canaan, they told him everything that had happened, saying, the man who runs the country spoke to us roughly and accused us of being spies. We told him we're honest men, and in no way spies. There were 12 of us brothers, sons of one father. One is gone, and the youngest is with our father in Canaan. But the master of the country said, leave one of your brothers with me, take food for your starving families and go. Bring your youngest brother back to me, proving that you're honest men and not spies, and I'll give your brother back to you, and you'll be free to come and go in this country. As they were emptying their sacks, each man came on his purse of money. On seeing their money, they and their father were upset. Their father said to them, you're taking everything I've got. Joseph's gone, Simeon's gone, and now you want to take Benjamin? If you have your way, I'll be left with nothing. Reuben spoke up, I'll put my 2 sons in your hands as hostages if I don't bring Benjamin back. You can kill them. Reuben, what kind of devil are you? If I don't bring Benjamin back, you can kill them? Wow, heathen. Trust me with Benjamin, I'll bring him back. But Jacob refused. My son will not go down with you. His brother is dead, and he is all I have left. If something bad happens to him on the road, you'll put my gray sorrowing head in the grave. This is the word of the Lord.